for coming out tonight to the Evolve Law and Legal Innovation Zone, Future of Legal Tech, I think we called it, is the forbidden fruit starting to hang lower. If you don't like that title, I think that was mine, so you can blame me. I'm just going to quickly introduce the Legal Innovation Zone for people who don't know what the Legal Innovation Zone is, and then Chris will come up and moderate the great panelists, and Mary from Evolve Law will finish off with a 5-minute conversation and explain more about what Evolve Law is doing. They just launched a couple months ago and do some great stuff out in the States and in Canada. I think they're off to Vancouver shortly, and they're doing an event in Stanford. They just came from LA, so they're doing some great stuff. The Legal Innovation Zone, for those that don't know, was created about 6 months ago out of the success from what you see here, which is basically the DMZ, who 2 weeks ago was ranked the #1 university business incubator in North America. Very exciting. And cross our fingers, next week they're doing the world ranking, so we'll see how they rank there. I think they were 5 last year, so we'll see how that works out. But the Legal Innovation Zone, really, we were created to try and bring system and technology-based innovation to the law. We do that really in 3 ways. One is from many of the companies that you see out there. So we're a legal incubator for law technology companies. We have 12 great companies out there. Many of them we're demoing out there. And we use most of the resources and many of the resources that Ryerson and the DMZ have to help those companies go from ideation to incubation and hopefully huge IPs. Outside of that, we also work with some of the larger law firms and legal organizations out there and help do innovation for hire. And we use actually Ryerson Futures, who are right back there, who have a lot of experience in that. They've worked with many of the large banks and car companies and others bringing innovation to those sectors. And finally, we do what we call designing and creating the 21st century justice system. And we're in the middle of a 4-month project dealing with separating families and children and how to come up with a better approach to families that are going through the separation. And so next week, actually on the 24th, we have a design entrepreneur coming in to lead a session around finding a better approach, and that's the 4th session that we have, and it's a 4-month program that will wrap up in January, February. So we're very excited about that, and you can go to our website and find out all the information on what we're doing and what we're trying to achieve. So it's great that all of you are here today. Before I call up Chris, I really want to thank Cleo, who is tonight's event sponsor and provided all the food and probably helped get a lot of you here tonight. So thank you very much. Obviously, we're partnered with Evolve, which I've already mentioned. So, with no further ado, I'll call up Chris Bentley, who probably doesn't need any introduction, but is Executive Director of both the Legal Innovation Zone and the Law Practice Program.
And thanks very much. The only person he didn't introduce was himself. This is Hirsch Perlis. So he's the Director of the Legal Innovation Zone. Thanks very much. You can hear me at the back? Look, this is fabulous. We have 4 fabulous panelists, and why don't they all come up first and then I'll introduce them all, wherever they are. Thanks for being here, and thanks for being part of the innovation in the law movement. It's a very exciting time. You can sit wherever you like. I may or may not get your names right. It's a very exciting time, and I think growing exponentially, and the people that we have on the panel here are themselves and the organizations they represent have been leaders in the space. So I'm really excited about the conversation. And if all goes to plan, I will be speaking very little, and they will be speaking a lot. But let me start on the far right with Morgan Borens, and hopefully you're not going to ask me about technology because I'm not the right one. Morgan is the Director of Disruption at Cognition LLP, and you also have a Director of Client Happiness, I think, at Cognition.
And lawyer happiness as well.
And lawyer happiness.
Right.
And fabulous, I like that. Cognition LLP is a law firm that's transforming the delivery of corporate and commercial legal services. And Morgan oversees the marketing, business development functions, as well as the creation of new products and services. He also holds the role of Director of Business Operations at Counsel Quest, where he handles the staffing and management of legal document review projects for clients. Prior to Cognition and Counsel Quest, he practiced corporate law with a focus on M&A and debt and equity financings. He's currently active as an executive member of the Canadian Corporate Counsel Association Ontario chapter. Thanks for being here, Morgan. Gillian Fatal is a Canadian from the West Coast with Clio and is in charge of the Northeast United States for Clio. And we are delighted that she's here in Central Canada,
Yes.
helping us, and delighted that Clio is a sponsor. Thank you so much for being here. She's the Regional Development Manager for Clio in the Northeast United States, obtained her JD from the University of Victoria Law School, clerked with the Federal Court of Canada. Clio, as most of you know, is the world's first, most comprehensive, easy-to-use, cloud-based law practice management software. We use it in the law practice program, and thank you very much for that. The company, under the leadership of Jack Newton, has spearheaded efforts to educate the legal community on the security, ethics, and privacy-related issues surrounding cloud computing. Prior to joining Clio last March, Gillian worked for Sikorsky Aircraft Corporation as a senior associate legal in the $1 billion aftermarket business, as well as in the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act compliance group. An interesting group. Now, next we have Shelby Austin. Shelby, thank you very much for being here. Shelby is a partner at Deloitte Canada, and of course all the speakers can tell you whatever they want, and if I got anything wrong they'll correct me, and if I left out the most important thing they'll add that in. Shelby is a partner at Deloitte Canada and leads its legal product solutions offerings, focusing on managing large-scale document review, due diligence projects on the litigation, competition matters, corporate transactions. She also consults on the legal spend management for corporate legal departments. Now, prior to that, she practiced on Bay Street, was a partner with a Bay Street law firm, then left and set up her own enterprise, ATD Legal Services PC, in Toronto, and it was acquired by Deloitte. Prior to founding ATD, Shelby was a partner at a large Bay Street law firm, as I said, where she practiced corporate and commercial litigation. So she leaves the partnership, founds ATD, it gets acquired by Deloitte, and she's now a partner at Deloitte. Sounds like a reverse takeover of some description is in the offing. And finally, Peter Karianis. And Peter has a couple of hats. One, he's a co-founder of a legal app that was demonstrating over there by the name of Stand-In. And Stand-In is great for criminal defense counsel, and since I was one for 23 years, this, as I understand it, is how it works. You're in Old City Hall in downtown Toronto, and you find out that one of your clients has been arrested in Brampton and is going to be appearing in Peel Courthouse in the afternoon. That's wonderful, except you're stuck in Old City Hall. Who's there to represent or to speak to the matter on your behalf? Stand-In stands in and identifies lawyers who are able, helps you sign up those lawyers, and they go and speak to the matter so nothing bad happens to your client in the Peel Courthouse while you're doing the good work down in Old City Hall. A great idea. It really has taken off. He also holds a hat, or wears a hat, as the founder, CEO of Conduit. And Conduit, I will let Peter explain in more detail, provides different forms of legal service for corporate clients, for those needing corporate services, really an on-demand type of service. And Morgan will speak to a similar arrangement they have with Cognition. I am delighted that we've got our four panelists. As I say, you're free to say whatever you like about your enterprise. So the notion is that the fruit might be hanging lower. Let's just throw this open, and Gillian, we're going to start with you. What is legal innovation, and where do you see it going?
I think legal innovation is a response to some of the needs in the legal industry. there hasn't been any change for such a long time. I also think it's innovation in articulated needs that is happening, which is really exciting. And I think legal innovation is this wonderful thing that is happening that's going to change the legal profession kind of across the board.
Now, Peter, you're holding the mic, so I'm going to ask you. If the fruit is hanging lower, are the lawyers as active in picking it as we should be?
That's a great question. So the shortest answer to are the lawyers as active as in picking it is right now, to be honest, for the large part of this working. Right, is that?
Is there a sound room?
I think they're crossing, so if we turn off one of the mics.
Hello? There we go. Thank you.
Let's just pass that.
Here, let's put it
Yeah.
down. We'll just pass it around. So the shortest answer is the broad part of the practice is probably not. I think the broad part of the practice was happy when they automated the quill and really didn't feel like we had to move beyond fountain pens. But that's changing dramatically. I think we can look in the last 10 years, 5 years, 2 years, 18 months, there's been a dramatic upswing, not only in interest around legal tech solutions, not only in the application of mobile solutions to the practice, but I think there's also a demographic shift, which is to say younger lawyers are moving into the practice, and they have a much greater appetite for this. And the older lawyers may be brought along as they're ready to, but the younger lawyers are going to be driving it.
Shelby, when you left your great position as a partner of the Bay Street law firm and decided to start this entirely new enterprise, why did you do that?
Why did you do that?
Now I just dropped my BlackBerry, showing I have no credibility in this room. So, thank you. I did it because I realized, or at least I saw the market changing globally. So now I think it's a lot, we're lucky. It's still soon enough that we can all do really well, and there's so much room in legal tech and legal innovation to do a million things so well. But there is also, it's pretty easy to call. At the time, I think in 2009, 2010, it was a little less easy to call that we were going in this direction. I sat on the law practice management executive for the Ontario Bar Association, and I was trying to get them to have a conference, like some sort of breakfast and learn about outsourcing and about the future of legal technology. To which I was assured by everyone on the call that there was, it was a phase, and that it was surely going away. And so I did it because I believed. I still believe. I know a number of people in this room who have started businesses, and I genuinely believe that we're here because we're right. And I'm not, and you'll hear about this later, I'm not a big we'll cannibalize the law and end of Bay Street, Richard Susskind kind of gal. I don't believe that a whole bunch of brilliant people are going to end up not having jobs. It's not what I believe. But what I do believe is that we will work smarter and harder, and I believe that law will be significantly different in the years to come. So that's why I did it.
Morgan, Cognition has been in the field for a number of years now. Started very small, quite a large growth. What was the opportunity that Cognition saw, and has the journey been what you expected?
So just to clarify, I can't take all the credit. Cognition was founded 10 years ago by two lawyers, Robson Ho and Joe Millstone. I myself have been part of the organization for the past 3 years, but I can tell you, even within those 3 years, I got involved when we were around 20 lawyers. Today we're around 55, so that growth trend has really picked up recently. But I think what Joe and Robson really saw at the outset was this opportunity that in-house counsel weren't getting served in the way that they needed. And what they needed wasn't always a lawyer sitting in, to use the harsh phrasing, an ivory tower who knew, law in the academic sense, but they needed a lawyer who could get business done, someone who knew how businesses ran from the inside, understood the negotiation process, understood the needs of their board of directors, their executives, and could just act as a member of that business team in a legal capacity. So the Cognition model the bread and butter core offering that we provide to clients is our lawyers have worked both in large national Bay Street firms. They then went on, they worked in in-house legal departments, typically in senior roles running those departments, and now they come to Cognition and they work with our clients, bringing that expertise with them to just latch onto the team and hit the ground running. So the opportunity was there, and I think the growth sort of speaks for itself.
So do you do it on a project basis? A corporation would say to you, we've got a certain project, or how does it work exactly?
So we really hate the phrase, but historically we were kind of the mat leave replacement firm. And I'd say where the market confuses us even to this day is they really just say, you guys are a placement agency, but I think that's really short selling us, and there's a lot more we can provide. So some of those initial mat leave replacement opportunities, now 6 years later, are 3 lawyers working 5 days a week. So those clients who got that initial taste saw the benefit. Even when their team members come back, they understand the value and they choose to continue to work with us beyond that short-term project.
And Jillian, when you speak to a paper-based law firm and talk about the cloud, which many lawyers will think is the bringer of rain and the shader of the sun, what's the sales pitch for that paper-based law firm?
I do speak to paper-based law firms all of the time. All of the time. And we're still having the cloud conversation, which is surprising. And when I joined Clio, I had a discussion with the co-founder, Jack Newton, about this, that he'd been having this cloud discussion for the last 5 years. I was just asked by the New York City Bar to have a cloud security talk. So we're still having it. And the pitch, I would say, is just that the cloud has become more secure than in-house servers. All the major hacks in the last year have been behind firewalls. And Google, in fact, is now securing by device. So that's the kind of conversation I'm having. And I'm also having the conversation about our professional responsibilities and moving to the cloud. So I think it's important to kind of challenge these paper-based firms and these firms that are kind of hanging on to the old security model into thinking, or into understanding and knowing cloud security.
And if I'm a paper-based firm, why should I go to the cloud? Why should I give up my paper and go there?
Well, I think efficiency, cost savings. Absolutely, that would be the top one right there. And this is the other conversation I'm having with these paper-based firms, is continuing to pass down these costs to clients.
If you don't mind me speaking. Paper stays in the office. The cloud is wherever you go, whether that's on your mobile device, up at the cottage, on vacation, wherever. So you can start a document Friday afternoon in the office, but then over the weekend when you're out of town, it's very easy to access it and pick it up. You don't need to stuff your briefcase with all the necessary documentation.
Shelby, what did ATD and now Deloitte with ATD actually do?
Oh goodness. What don't we do? We work on, we probably embrace the word project a little bit more, but these days we work, we work on enterprise solutions as well. But basically we did large scale legal projects. We found ways of combining people, process, and technology to do large scale commoditized low end legal tasks faster and cheaper. It started with document review and e-discovery, which still accounts for the majority of the legal tech market, a couple of billion a year. In Canada, about 200 million a year. Then there's the diligence market, which is pretty similar as well. Again, on a transaction, bring in teams of lawyers to use text analytics and sort of interesting technology and low-cost people combination to do things again sort of faster and cheaper. But now we're starting to work even more along the contract management lifecycle. Starting to find interesting ways of pairing with organizations to look at sort of broader legal processes and again, just combining people, process, and technology to do it cheaper and faster.
Peter, two-part question to you. The same one, what does Conduit do? But the next one is, what are the barriers to innovation and wearing your stand-in hat? What are the barriers to innovation, either in Conduit's phrase or in Stevens?
Sure, thanks. So when we talk about conduit law, we describe Conduit as a dispersed law firm, and what we do is we embed lawyers on an on-demand basis, providing in-house services, and we use Clio. I don't know how early an adopter we are. Jeremy would probably be able to say, but I think in Toronto, we were in the early crowd of people that brought in Clio, because our view was, I have a lawyer who may work on in any given week, 1 day a week from our office, which is a hoteling space on King Street, 1 day a week from the client's office, and 1 day a week from home, and may do all three of those things in a week. And I wanted that lawyer to be able to have permanent access to all the documents wherever she was, in order to respond to a client inquiry, whether or not it was going to be. So that has been a real enabler for us at Conduit. When I was introduced to Clio, I thought, perfect, this is what we're going to do. And then how do we implement it? I didn't know. I just walked out of the room and let somebody else sort that out, because that was the other issue. But in terms of legal innovation and where people a lot of us are coming at this from being lawyers. Consequently, we're risk mitigators, and everybody, the old chestnut, of being risk averse. I've found that when I am trying to exploit an opportunity, trying to be creative, trying to find a creative solution, whether it's on the technical side, and our developers, which we found at Ryerson DMZ, Kevin and Tassine over there, they'll know that my technical limitations are great. But whether it's a technical solution that we're looking for, or a service-centered solution, or a market solution that we're trying to expand to, I have to actively not think like a lawyer. I have to literally get all of my client-facing stuff off of my desk, go for a walk around the block, and come back and say, okay, let's think about how we can solve a problem creatively. Let's not think of all the scary things that are out there. That's been my solution, and it's made me a little bit manic. There are times when I'm hiding from clients because I've got my, I've had the situation where I'm behaving like a lawyer and everything looks scary to Conduit law or stand-in. You're like, oh, I can't do that. That's an awful indemnity clause. And then there are the days when I'm feeling very creative and expansive and entrepreneurial, and I look at a client contract, and I'm like, you're fine. Don't worry about it. Just sign it. And then I realize that I actually need to create a little bit of a discipline, so I literally separate myself out. But I think it's a mindset, it's an attitude, it's an approach. As lawyers, we are trained to be perfect. We are trained to deliver the gold-plated solution in every case. We're afraid to be wrong at all. We're afraid that we'll get cross-examined or tripped up, or law pro will be brought into it. And that, I believe, is pricing our services out of the market. It's leaving behind people that need legal services, but maybe don't need them on a gold-plated basis, but they need effective and efficient and properly delivered services. And liberating your mind allows you the creativity to say, well, how can we deliver that service in a way that everybody can afford it?
Shelby, the barriers to innovation and how you overcome them.
So I think with legal innovation, I think we're lucky. I think there are very few barriers. I think what Peter was saying is right. I think you have to separate yourself out, you have to get into the right mindset, you have to get over the risk adversity. But really and truly, there are very few. We work in a service-based business. There are, and there are very few reasons. There's not a lot of capital. There are very few reasons why there should be barriers. Now it's cheaper to use tech developers than it ever has been, because you can leverage global resources. You can build much faster than you ever have before. You really just need to have an idea. And even then, there's so many ideas globally that we don't have deployed here. And I just think we're so lucky. We're so lucky to be here. There have been, 31, am I saying that, Hirsch? I'm looking at you, 31 legal startups in Toronto this year that have, really largely, if not started, hit their stride in the past 12 months. There are 2 legal incubators in Toronto. We are so lucky. And as a result, I think the barriers are very few and far between, and that everyone in this room who's thinking about a business that they have should immediately start as soon as possible, and call the legal innovation center while you do.
So before you pass it over, those are the resource issues.
Yes.
And in the culture of the legal profession, and let me ask, is that a barrier, or does it inhibit the use of legal innovation or the development?
Sure. So my other job is I run innovation and growth for the financial advisory business at Deloitte, and we develop new products for Deloitte. We have internal startups, and the biggest challenge we have is that people, accountants, much like lawyers, are rather risk-averse professionals. The biggest challenge we have is sort of inculcating startup thinking. It's very hard to learn that you can just do something and don't need to wait to be told. It's very hard to look at a problem that has a lot of risk on it and see a way through it. It's very hard to be savvy. It's embarrassing to hustle. I mean, I have been thrown out of every law office in this city multiple times before I made any headway. I mean, we're not sellers. We're not. And that probably is one of the most important things. So there are a lot of good startups here and who have created some very interesting technology. And I think one of the biggest barriers we see is that there's not a lot of hustle in law, and it's a real challenge because I think we're nervous. It's not. So even more than the resource barriers, even more than even the mindset barriers and the risk barriers, I think that little bit of hustle is missing too.
Jillian, you deal with the culture all the time.
Yeah, I would say it's really tricky. It's not easy to sell to lawyers. But what I'm learning, I started in February, is that it's really important to engage in the conversation and be providing information about legal tech innovations in whatever venue that you can possibly find. And there's lots of different venues that you can find to do this. Like this, bar associations are really proactive. So, but yeah, it's not an easy conversation to have. And I think it's problematic to say, lawyers are so difficult, they're so analytical, they can't make decisions. I think I am learning it's really important to have a conversation, to understand their needs, to ask lots of questions, and provide value to them as far as what we know in legal innovation and how we can help them.
Morgan, the 10-year growth of cognition probably dealt with a lot of lawyer culture that wasn't initially welcoming.
Yeah, the word that it all boils down to in my mind is conservatism. And we're a very conservative market, and you can build something that's better, faster, and cheaper, and people will still just say no, because it forces them to change, and people are afraid of not doing things based on the status quo. So to give an example, due diligence, e-discovery, you can say to firms, we have a better way of doing this. We're using better resources. It's better cost. It's more efficient. And they'll just say, well, we have associates who are sitting idle, and we'd rather use them. Or, there's lots of examples, fixed fee pricing. Sometimes you say, if we price a fixed fee, we could give you a daily rate, a project rate. And surprisingly, people sometimes just say, I'd rather you charge me by the hour, because that's what they can get their heads around. So even though there are developments, there are improvements, a lot of the time people just want what they're already familiar and comfortable with. And sometimes I tell people that and they look at me cross-eyed, but it's what we come up against time and time again.
Well, I think just along that conservatism, it's really helpful to have lawyers that have adopted legal tech, be a part of your team, and be a part of messaging for you. And that's definitely what we try to do at Clio. We have real evangelists, and they're just so very helpful. And I think that there's an instant credibility there.
I'm gonna give Peter a chance to go first. You go. Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, I take it on me. When I can't convince someone, that's not on them. It means I haven't done the job I need to do in showing them something good enough or smart enough, or and that's what we need to learn. I mean, this is what it comes down to. We need to reframe, go back, figure out what will resound, try it again. My husband often jokes that, or often says quite kindly that I have tenacity, which means basically that I keep running at brick walls until eventually I believe that the next time the wall will fall down, even though that is really the definition of insanity. And I think what we need is to run against a few more brick walls, because, the change, I don't know, and maybe, like, you're absolutely right. People, I mean, I told you, I've been thrown out of everywhere twice. But then it works. I mean, it really does work eventually. And, so it's really how do we make that change? Because we can only control what we can control, and we can control ourselves. And so I'm going to take responsibility for seeing that change.
So that's why Shelby's really successful, because she understands that it falls on the communicator to communicate the message, right? If you don't get what we're saying, the sort of ego-driven message is, well, you don't get what I'm saying, so you're not getting it. The client-centered approach to that is, I need to find another way to articulate that. I need another way to communicate that. I need to find another way to get the value proposition across. I come at it from another point, or this is sort of my starting point in the discussion, which is, look at the industry. We're precedent fixated. We're fixated on precedent. That's what you start law school, day one. Precedent, precedent, precedent. It's really hard to be innovative. But it's hard to be innovative when the first question that you're going to ask is, what's everybody else doing? Because that's what case law tells you to do, is the first thing is what has happened in another court? What's happened in another place? What is everybody else doing? If you're a corporate lawyer in a law firm and you're a junior lawyer, someone says, can you get me a promissory note or some document? And you run to the precedent system. What's somebody else done? It's hard to break through that mindset if you always are looking to what other people are doing. So to be innovative, you have to break away and say, I don't really care what everybody else is doing. I certainly don't care what everybody else is doing around me right now. I believe this is right. I'm going to run up against a brick wall, and we're going to keep moving forward until we can get that message across.
Are you always making the value proposition to lawyers, who of course are always working for their client? Or are you increasingly trying to make the value proposition to the clients and have them encourage their lawyers to adopt the innovative approach? Nobody wants the mic now.
No conduit, sorry. Wants the mic.
So I hope this answers your question. We service three markets, three very distinct markets. We service startups, SMEs, and then corporate clients, and we define corporate clients by any company that has an in-house lawyer. Startups, easiest sell. Here's a better, faster, cheaper version of legal services, I'm sold. SMEs, you're typically selling to CEOs or CFOs. They're in charge of the money, they understand the operations. Again, it's a bit of an easier sell. There's some resistance on, I've got friends in the firms that I've been working with for 30 years and I don't want to call John and tell him I'm passing this work off, whatever. But you can get past that resistance because it comes down to dollars and cents. The slowest adopters are the corporate in-house market. And their longest sales cycle, most resistance, most questions. They'll throw every answer in the book at you before they come around to say yes. That's the first-hand experience. But the unfortunate thing is the corporate market, bigger than anyone else by and large.
And they felt pain.
Yep.
That's been my experience in that some of the firms in my region still aren't really feeling the pressures of the market. But I found corporate America in-house, they've felt those demands for efficiencies.
Sometimes we're asked by people, who's your biggest competitor in the market? And I answer right away very quickly, it's the GC. The GC, who is my potentially greatest client, is also my biggest competitor because that GC has an ability to make many different decisions, have many different buying decisions, including internalizing the work altogether. And we offer a bit of a hybrid service that way.
What about international competition for legal services? Is it, we've got ABS springing up in England, Scotland, Wales, in Australia.
So ABS aside, because ABS doesn't actually touch my market very much, but my biggest competitors are global. In fact, there is little local competition. There's very, very fierce global competition though. And so I think it keeps us on our toes. It keeps us on our toes. There are really no borders anymore. That's why the technology that we're discussing tonight is so compelling, because you can launch from Toronto from here and IPO in 5 to 10 years or less. But yeah, I think it's fierce, and I think people underestimate how global the legal market is. There are so many studies on this, but like more than commoditization, more than anything else, what moves the needle on law firm work is inbound out-of-country work. It's the single biggest indicator of failure or success of large law firms. So, yeah, I think that that's a great question.
I think the international competition really only touches certain buckets of work. So I can appreciate for outsourced discovery, document review, it's the wage arbitrage play, right? The clients are looking and I can get this team in India or South Africa for much less. That's a competitive threat. With the higher level work, it hasn't started to happen as much. The international competition is more coming from the global players who are now entering this market, whether that's through mergers or acquiring local firms. There's that going on in the market clearly, but is that really a benefit or is that hurting the local players? I mean, are clients going to be more impressed that their firm has a UK office and a Hong Kong presence, or do they want people who have local on-the-ground knowledge and they're client-focused in this local space?
Let me flip the question around a bit. A lot of the people here are either not yet called as lawyers, looking at innovative approaches, looking at market opportunities, or newly called lawyers, maybe in a traditional practice or maybe not. What's your advice for the new or the person considering an innovative approach?
So Shelby earlier used the consultant speak, which is people, process, technology. And really that's what it all boils down to, and that's the equation. You've got to get all three pillars correct. And on the people part, that definition is really becoming skewed. So it used to be you were top-notch law school trained, you worked at a top-notch firm, and that's what we want, and it's just no longer the case. A qualified, white shoe lawyer is no longer necessary in every instance. And there's increasingly more opportunities where you need the legal background, the legal market understanding, and that mindset, but you don't need to be practicing law. And just to give you a few examples, like procurement is huge. Everything on the larger scale goes to RFP, and firms are really being challenged to figure it out. Like come up with a project managed approach, come up with a pricing solution that makes sense, and you don't need a lawyer to do that.
They aren't skills normally taught in law schools.
Definitely not. Project management, that's a huge one. You need someone to just break down what are the phases, what are the tasks, who's going to handle which work. Again, you don't need to be a lawyer to do that. It's good to have the legal understanding, but you don't have to have practiced for 5-10 years. So I think, there's this big fear of coming out of law school, I can't even get called to the bar. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it makes you look at the legal landscape a little differently and seek out those unusual opportunities that didn't exist 5 years ago, but tomorrow are probably going to be spaces where people are at the forefront. And just to give you one example, a few years ago, you said you were becoming an e-discovery specialist. It's not like, are you crazy? Like that's what you're going to focus your career on? We're kind of seeing that today with things like pricing, project management, procurement, etc. But 5 years from now, maybe you'll be the one laughing.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I find the whole atmosphere is just so great compared to when I finished law school, in that there was kind of one direction towards law firms, and now I find people are doing so many different things, talking about it, willing to help, collaborative, and that's a great opportunity. That's a new opportunity. That's just a completely new environment for new lawyers.
So the advice for the new, the young?
To say, learn about the future. Think about it. Think about what's going to be happening and reach out to the people that are in it. Reach out to the legal pioneers, legal tech pioneers, and I think and get people together to have the conversations and collaborate on ideas, move forward that way.
So on my dark days, I think about the fact that Google tried to sell itself after 1 year for $1 million. and nobody would purchase Google. So my advice is, believe that you can actually do it, and think to yourself, Google was just like two guys. You know, it wasn't Google. You know, you could be Google. You know, I just think it's very comforting. I read a lot of biographies of founders, entrepreneurs. I like seeing people's journeys, because while I've stepped out of the entrepreneurial space for now, I think that there's so much to be learned from the paths of others, and there are so many stories you can hear about and so many stories you can see, and I think when I can understand how these guys, you know, became, you know, Mark Zuckerberg, or, you know, I like understanding the journey, and I like understanding the struggle, because really one of you guys in here could be, you know, doing this on your jet in 10 years, and I would love to see that, and hopefully you'll invite me as a result of this very wise advice.
So I think this is pretty close to Shelby on this one. I think this is literally the best time to be graduating law school in easily 2 or 3 generations. Easily, notwithstanding tuition, notwithstanding bills. So I graduated, I went to law school in the States and Canada, Michigan State and Osgood. I came out in '96. I feel like I'm in a bit of a straddling generation that way. I now have a company with an app, but I came out of law school a few years ago, and the gray hairs to prove it. Here's my little personal anecdote. I was trying to get a job. I was hustling for a job in '96. And I went to Washington, D.C., because I went to law school in the States, and I went to D.C. to try and get a job, and I was hooked up with a bunch of alumni, and this guy took me out to lunch. It's fantastic. I'll never forget the lunch. It's fantastic on K Street, downtown Washington. And he looked at me in the middle of the prime rib, or whatever it was we were eating, and said, "You know what's changed the practice of law completely?" And I immediately started thinking of what? Case law, because we're precedent-based. And I thought, I'm in Washington, there's going to be a Supreme Court decision, there's something I've missed, and I racked my brains. And I thought, my career is about to turn down because I have no idea what has completely changed the practice of law. And then he threw in some liberal profanities, which I'm not going to repeat here. But he said, "It's that damn fax machine." 1996, Washington, D.C., it was that damn fax machine, because the letters came too fast. We didn't have time to think about it before we answered our questions. So we're way past that. Now,
I actually remember the time before fax machines.
That just makes me really old.
but we're now in a position, you know, fast forward, in 1996, it was only the damn fax machine, right? The email was brand new. You would have got your first email account in law school at that time. You would have been going to law firms that didn't have email accounts, or there were newfangled things in 1996. We're now way, way past that. There's all kinds of technology. To Shelby's point, the technology is cheaper. It's more available. It's ubiquitous. It's mobile. Demographically, we've changed. It's not the damn fax machine anymore. So my advice to young grads is, you've got a law degree, wonderful, or you're about to get a law degree, that's great, that's just a starting point. You need to now complement that or pair that with something else, whether that means you're going to learn to code or become comfortable with coding, or whether that means you're going to become more comfortable with certain business disciplines. I'm not saying everybody has to go and get an MBA. You have to know what kind of lawyer you're going to be, you have to know what kind of client you want to work with, and you're going to have to complement those legal skills with something else to really be the problem solver that you think you're going to be. But it's the best time ever to do that. Really, the world is your oyster.
Peter, you were saying something when we were having a discussion earlier about lots of people have ideas.
Well, yeah. So this is something that's been brought home to bear for me recently. Not only is the technology ubiquitous, but the ideas are ubiquitous. They're all over the place. Everybody's got ideas, right? And we've all had this experience where we've seen something and we're like, ah, damn, I thought of that. I could have done that. That's a great idea. Ideas are worthless. Honest to God. I mean, I'm sure there's a patent lawyer somewhere who's telling me that I'm committing some level of malpractice. But the idea is not the issue. It's all about the execution. It's the team, it's the hustle, it's the ability, it's the tenacity, because your idea is great, but 100 people are going to say no to your new idea, right? So if you can't handle 100 no's, your idea is not going anywhere. And however good your idea might be, there's some kids in Seattle in New York, in Paris, in Washington, in Winnipeg, in Vancouver, in Austin, with the exact same idea. And they might actually be 5 months ahead of you in implementing that idea. So it's execution, execution, execution.
Yeah, I think what's also interesting about our space is in some ways we compete, some of us. I mean, and in fact, we're so early into the whole thing that competitors are good. I mean, competitors aren't bad. We push out the pie. We're all doing well. So if Morgan convinces a client to do something in a different way, which he does, he's a great sales guy, that's great, because maybe I'll come along in 6 months and won't have to convince that client that they should do things differently. Maybe I can pick up that client a lot easier because they've already been converted to the concept. And so it doesn't actually, we're also focused on, but somebody has made a lawyer match program. And yeah, there are lots of them. Or someone has made an automation or an AI. Like, there are so many, you're right, like there's nothing, the ideas are there are lots of them. I just think you don't necessarily have to be the first or the only in a sector as well. Look at how many law firms there are who compete against each other, and they don't even compete very fiercely. They're still pushing at the pie. Anyway, I just think we are fierce competitors. We compete very hard. We are never complacent. We do our best to grab clients anywhere we can, and from anyone we can, but we ultimately are all helping each other by pushing out more and more ideas into the market.
Before you lose the microphone, does the use of artificial intelligence, e-discovery tools, is this the end of lawyers, the beginning of the end of lawyers?
Great question.
There are lots of lawyers between you and the elevators, just by the way.
I think automation, I think automation is not the end of lawyers. I think artificial intelligence is not the end of lawyers either. I think that right now the areas where we are pushing into for the foreseeable future are one of two ways. On the enterprise side, e-discovery, diligence, text analytics, machine-based learning style tools, I think they are making lawyers more efficient and are still very much people-driven, much like the fax machine or the photocopier. I think on the artificial intelligence, where we are obviating the need, we're in fact serving non-consumers of legal services right now. So I think really we're not obviating the need for lawyers, we're getting people who wouldn't have otherwise had lawyers access. And so really I mean, again, I'm not the doom and gloom lawyer person, so maybe I'm biased in that, but really I see it as two separate questions, both very good. But I just think that the role of the lawyer will shift and pivot. I think lawyers will get into other non-legal disciplines, as these guys have said. I just think the conception will change, but no, I think, I think when the photocopier came out, we all thought it was the end of jobs, so I don't know.
So the terms AI and automation are really, like, right now this magic term right now, and we're going to automate, like, oh wow, you figured it out. Or underlying this is artificial intelligence, and you're like, wow, that must be a good solution. You read about it in the legal press, people talk about it, and there's not really like that much substance there. So I think there's kind of too much being placed on that. I think it hasn't been thought through or discussed fully. But like to Shelby's point, it all at the end of the day makes lawyers do their jobs better. And the best analogy is like Salesforce. So Salesforce came out and now they've added on all these integrations. You can have the full suite of tools. It can automate your sales process, but at the end of the day, you need a good salesperson using Salesforce to get the sale done. You could put a crummy, lousy salesperson on Salesforce, they're not going to close the deal. So I think that's very true of what's going on in legal right now. You have these great tools, they're automating, they're using artificial intelligence to use the magic terms, but if you don't have a smart, capable lawyer or non-lawyer managing that, work's not going to get done. It doesn't just do itself.
Jillian, and I know you, I know Peter wanted to say something.
I would just add that I think it's just really difficult to predict. I mean, I think that there is, this is going to be the challenge to see where is the role of the lawyer, where does that land, what is most appropriate for lawyers to be doing. But the pace of change is so fast right now. I think it's going to be, it's difficult to see into the future what it's going to look like with things like AI.
But on the way over, the Ross guys, the Blue Jay guys, the guys who are working on Watson, I mean, that stuff is amazing. If you haven't checked out what is actually going on, and what Kira's doing with machine-based learning is amazing too, but like, if you put aside sort of, I just think we really also have to engage and understand everything better, because I think some of the stuff being done is amazing. Sorry, Peter, for taking your time.
No, not at all. No. So I'm going to talk about, not specifically on AI, frankly, people think my intelligence passes for something entirely artificial. But on changing more, so we've got this app, Stand in Law. And this is an on-demand, location-based app that allows lawyers to connect with one another in real time, hire them, check out their rating, 5-star rating, check out their reviews, hire them through the app, and then pay them through the app, same day. And it's not a new behavior. It's something that criminal defense lawyers do already. We're just changing it so that you can do it through the app. Well, a lot of people thought that's exciting and interesting. We've got great and favorable response, and some people have come back and said, "Why would you can't Uberize law? You can't. This doesn't work." And I've responded to them, and I said, I'll take that on, and I understand what you're saying, but right now, whether you know it or not, there's a person out there who just flipped open their mobile phone. They're going to book a flight on their mobile phone to New York City. They're going to land in New York City. They're going to grab an Uber that's going to take them from the airport to accommodations that they booked on Airbnb, which they're then going to use to get ready for a date they found on Tinder. And that happened right now. If you think law is immune from that, you're entirely fooling yourself. So whether it's AI, or it's changing platforms, or it's the ubiquity of the mobile device and the sharing economy and the currency of trust that is built up in the sharing economy, all of that is changing.
And the consumer doesn't care or doesn't think about the jobs. I mean, less than 10 years ago, Eastman Kodak was a thriving company, and now we take pictures on these things, and they are no more. It's an interesting one. So if I was an investor or an entrepreneur, where would I be looking? Where should I be looking in the legal tech space?
I think on an investment side, always bet on the person. Never mind what the tech is, never mind what the business solution is, never mind what's behind them. Bet on the person. If you find tenacious people who are willing to hit the brick wall a lot, they will find the solution beyond that. Remember, the idea is meaningless. A great idea with really lousy execution, it's not going to go anywhere. My bet is bet the person.
So I agree, and by the way, the research just shows that Peter's absolutely right. Like, you should be betting on the people, for sure. But as to where my money would go, AI for sure. For my money, companies developing commercial applications using artificial intelligence and machine-based learning, that's where I would put my money. That is where I will put my money.
Apart from putting it at Clio, where else?
Yeah. Well, yeah, if I can just speak about Clio, because I think that they've been successful because they've been tenacious, the co-founders, Jack Newton and Ryan Gavreau, but they've also really worked to earn the trust of the legal profession and really engaged bar associations and the law societies, and really, I think, put both feet in. So I think that kind of commitment also has been important and has led to Clio's growth and kind of regard in this space, a high regard in this space.
So I'd say it's a few things. So on one hand, there's the areas that are completely saturated, and for the most part, I'd say those are more on the administrative side. So things like, billing and invoicing, DMS, etc. But I wouldn't rule those out either, because Clio is a great example where billing and invoicing, there's a bunch of different systems. It's hard to differentiate one from the other, but on one hand, they're mostly catered to the high-tier firms that can afford them at the high price tag, or if they're catered more to the lower market, they're old, they're clunky, they've got lousy UI, etc. So what Clio did well was say, here's an opportunity, even though it's saturated, if we build something that's way better, it's cloud-based, it's open API, it has the ability to integrate with other apps, all of that, then you're probably likely going to steal some market share. And I think they executed very well, and I give you guys a ton of credit because the growth sort of speaks for itself. So don't rule out saturated spaces, and to steal like the Peter Thiel phrase, if you can do it 10x, then you're bound to steal some market share. On the other hand, where there's like open terrain and new opportunities is sort of, rather than the administrative functions that support lawyers, it's now getting more into the actual practice, the actual day-to-day handling of legal work. Ross being a great example. Like, again, I guess there were some research platforms in the past, but this is one that's like really taking it to the next level. Project management, that's becoming more and more necessary. So it's rather than just administering the day-to-day running of a practice, it's the hands-on delivery of legal services in ways that technology can support them.
So let me flip the question around just a little bit and ask about the consumer who's not a lawyer. They're doing more and more on their own in many different areas. You've got LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer and others out there edging, looking to serve. Is there a big market for legal tech to serve the consumer who's a bit of a do-it-yourselfer?
Yes, but I haven't figured out that formula, because at the end of the day, it's all about users, and how you get traction is, I mean, it's anyone's guess, right? And when you take a look at it, LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer, like, yes, they're automating forms and legal documents, but what's really making them money is then they're passing it off to a lawyer from there. So, you have to understand the full business model and where the revenue is being generated to say, like, what's the true opportunity. So in that sense, they've automated, they're using this clean tech platform, but it's just a means to get the client in the door, pass them off to the lawyers through this online portal, and then get the billings ongoing that way.
So we don't yet have the service in a box, which is self-contained without the lawyer.
Yeah, I guess, to use the phrase, it's the low-hanging fruit. It's kind of that grunt, commoditized, process-driven work. To do that in a quick, easy, cost-effective fashion, but then you hook them, and you gotta pass it off to the lawyer to do the work from there. So that probably didn't answer your question at all, but I would just say, like, to just think, I'm gonna put out an app and it's going to get 1 million users tomorrow, like, there has to be some more thought to the true business model there, and what's going to get the traction.
So, the question doesn't matter. So if you're looking the next 5 years, Joey, what are you seeing as an opportunity? What are you seeing as a challenge?
From the perspective of where I am at Clio, the opportunity is the growth. There's so much growth to be had. So many firms are still writing down their time on paper. So that is the huge opportunity, and it's extremely exciting. And as you say, there's lots of space for competitors. And what are the challenges? Was that the other part of it?
Sure.
I think the ongoing challenge is just for companies like Clio is just to continue to innovate, great client service, continuing to find what is most valuable to our clients. I think the challenge that I like talking about is what our profession is going to look like in 5 years, and the challenge of how fast this pace is of change. And also, on the other hand, the challenge of so many people still being reluctant to that change. And I had a really interesting experience where I'd just gone to 2 big legal tech conferences in the spring after I just started with Clio, and then had been to a couple of old law firms and thought this is going to be really tricky because it was all older partners, tricky to sell to them. And I went, got invited to the Young Lawyers Gala in Hartford, Connecticut, and I thought, awesome, I'm going to be singing to the choir. This is all young lawyers, perfect. I sat down at the table, and it was like I was sitting down with old partners. And I walked out of there just really being troubled by the divergence, I guess, of legal tech, the conversation I was having with legal tech people, and then the conversations with many of the lawyers. And just, I guess, the challenge of being relevant, the challenge of change in our profession.
So I'm sort of repeating things that have already been said, but the opportunity is the fact that all these different factors are converging. So as Peter alluded to, people are more day-to-day reliant on their mobile devices. So people are starting to look for technology solutions to better manage their day-to-day lives. Development costs have come down. There's more and more open source software out there. So to build something is probably at its easiest point. But the challenge, and I'm sort of like kind of paint the harsh picture, but there's more and more lawyers who are, whether it's for their own volition or because they've been forced, are looking for new opportunities and looking to technology as the next chance they're going to take. And that just means there's a lot of people that are trying to do this, right? And I think with that, what results from that is there's trends. So a few years ago it was kind of the lawyer match sites, like not the LinkedIn for lawyers, but kind of the clients and lawyer connection sites. And you saw one come out, but then quickly after that there were 10 more. And you're kind of seeing that like it's going trend to trend, where just as soon as one launches, there's a bunch of copycats out there very quick. So yeah, I think when you look at that, it comes back to this notion of you just have to keep running at the brick wall and tell yourself it's eventually going to come down. And I might be butchering the story, but from what I understand, Clio was not Jack Newton's first venture. He failed, I think, in like 4 previous ventures prior to this, and clearly now he hit the winning ticket. So, failure is a part of this. You hear this idea, you just got to build something, try it, and if you fail, learn from it and build the next one, and that's what it takes. And from the lawyer perspective, where people thought, I'm going to graduate law school, get the summer job, lead into the articling job, and then be a partner, it's a very different career path.
So,
Oh, sure.
I'm going to ask you a wrap-up question in 2 seconds, but add whatever you want to that.
Oh, no, go for it.
No, it's okay.
So if you had to share some thoughts or give some advice to people who are interested in legal tech, want to participate in the market, maybe some advice as to where they would start. Let me start, because legal tech has this wonderful mystique about it. But I would probably start by asking people to look at the rest of your life and how you access services, how you find products, how they're delivered to you, how you pay for them, and compare that to accessing legal services. And if there's ever a difference, then ask yourself why. Because if there's a difference and you can do a legal service the way you access any other service, that's a good opportunity, and it's probably coming sooner than you think. That's my thought. Peter, what's your thought?
So, obviously we're looking at this from the context of legal solutions, legal problems, delivery of legal services to a body of clients. My advice on this is to find a problem, whatever that problem might be, however you might cast that problem, and then fall in love with its solution. Fall in love with finding the solution to that problem, because that's what's going to give you the strength and the energy and the enthusiasm to be able to chase it forward. It's also going to, frankly, give you a lot of authenticity around delivering that solution. So find a problem that truly resonates with you, that you understand, and the solution that you fall in love with, and I'm using those words quite deliberately, not just poetically, that it has to be something that pulls you, because you'll need that authenticity and energy to help find the solution.
I don't really have that much to add to it. That's very well put. Yeah, there has to be a problem, and you really do have to love it. Because I can only tell you that when I finally decided that this was something I was going to do, that I knew it was going to work. Now, whether, the fact that it did work is a good thing, but I didn't really know it was gonna work. I just knew in my core that it was going to work, and that didn't mean it would, it just meant I was sure enough to do it. And so, your gut will guide you. I mean, I can only tell you, and I mean, look at what people have come up with in this room. I have to give a huge shout out to Closing Folders because I'm an investor and I love them. But you know, you just have to be passionate that the solution yes, just saying what you were saying. I'm going to pass on the mic.
Yeah, and I think I would say the same thing, but I think what I found with Clio that has been so wonderful is it's a really great product, and that was my aha moment, I think, is that I was actually a tech-reluctant lawyer. I speak often to tech-reluctant lawyers, and the first time I used Clio, I was like, wow, this is fantastic. You know, I would love to use this tool to practice law. So I think as well as fixing the problem is also having a good product. Yeah.
I mean, kind of going back to what I said, it's easy to build now, but it's much harder to get people to pay you for what you built. So I really think the process is, before you set out on building anything, make sure there's a market and that people are going to give you money for what it is you build. And the easiest way to do that is get out and talk to people. You know, set up coffees with everyone and anyone who's in the legal services industry, ask good questions and listen, and over time you're going to piece together the themes. You're going to hear people love to vent, they love to talk about themselves. Those are two givens. And if you sit, you listen, and you ask questions, and you do that with enough people, you're probably eventually going to piece together a story where you're saying, everyone's saying this. And then that starts to cast your mind to, well, if everyone's saying that, and I do this, then they're going to pay me money. And then once you've come up with that, then it's a matter of bouncing that off, again, lots and lots of people. A lot of people, you know, going back to this point, like, the idea itself, it's sorry to swear, but it's worth shit. If you have an idea in your head and you're not bouncing that off anyone, it's never going to go anywhere. And if you share an idea with someone and they execute and they launch quicker than you, then, like, hats off to them. But if you're driven and you're motivated and you're hungry to make that become a reality, you're going to get there. So go through the process of talking to people, finding out what the theme is, coming up with a solution to that theme, and then bouncing it off everyone you know to figure out, are people going to pay me money for this? And it starts to come into place from there.
Well, I think the bottom line is the fruit's no longer forbidden, and it is hanging lower. Morgan, Jillian, Shelby, Peter, thank you very much. Great comment.
You can stay.
No.
You're going to run away.
Okay, thank you all for, is that on?
Yep.
Okay, thank you all for coming. My name is Mary Jetton, and I am Canadian also, Jillian. So I worked in Montreal. I became a lawyer late in life, but I was one of those people who went to law school and did not write the bar. So I had my aha moment. I created a software company, which was not at all in legal technology. I created it to solve the problem that entrepreneurs weren't identifying and protecting their intellectual property. So I fell backwards into legal tech because I had many lawyers involved. I was doing, as Morgan said, involving lawyers, making sure that I was better educating their clients. And one of them said, hey, if I had all the questions and all the answers from this TurboTax-like thing that you've built, that would help me triage my clients. So there I was in legal tech. And so to Morgan's point, I started out to solve one problem. I did solve that, but entrepreneurs didn't want to pay for it. So then I went over, and now lawyers pay for it, and actually partners pay for it, which is the best way, but it is the slowest road. And Shelby, I'm a kindred spirit, and you have to have tenacity. And that's why Jules Miller, who's not here, who's from the US, and I created Evolve Law. We created it to basically have a big forum where we can have a big voice and talk about how you need to adopt technology. And whether that's lawyers, and actually it works for fintech too, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So we're just trying to get the word out there. It's a member organization, and I wanted to thank Ryerson and Hirsch and Chris for letting us come here and do our first Canadian event. We started in September. We created Evolve Law to solve a problem, which was all of us being able to shorten the sales cycle with attorneys, and it's actually been wildly popular and successful. Sadly, faster than either of Joel's and I day jobs, in terms of we've received large checks from law firms for which we've been trying to sell for years, but they gave us money for Evolve Law, so there you go. Anyway, so the Darwin talk is a 5-minute talk, which I will start my 5 minutes now, but and then afterwards everyone's welcome to stay, to see some of the companies that here and finish eating the food and everything in the back. So the idea of a Darwin talk is you might not agree with what I'm going to say. It's supposed to be provocative, so then we can have an interesting conversation while people finish the food. So Darwin, he was a pretty innovative guy. So he is all about the kind of the strongest survive. So what I'm going to talk about tonight, and this is Jules' talk. We did this in Boston, and actually Lee, if he's still here, was at the first talk. There he is. So this talk is really why do lawyers hate legal tech, and I was happy to hear that Shelby had invested in. Oh, do you want that back? So you. So I was happy to hear that Shelby had invested in legal tech, because this is what is happening with investment in legal tech, and this just isn't in the U.S. I did try to look up some things for Canada, and I'll reference those. But what we have is fintech versus legal tech. We tried to find a vertical that we could compare to legal technology. So we have the monopoly guy, and these are the type of technologies that are going on in fintech, according to Charles Moldo, one of his articles. He's a big VC in the US. So then Bessemer, who invested $20 million in Clio in their last round, this is their prediction of the 4 types of legal technology that are going to garner investment. So now let's take a look at the market size. So you got fintech, 2.2 billion, but you have to weed out insurance payments, lendings, and all that type of stuff. So you get a market a market size of about 379 billion. That's in the US. And then, this is Jules, but the investment is huge. There's billions invested in fintech companies. There was just some big announcement. And actually yesterday when I was traveling here, there was a report that came out on VC investment and PE investment in Canada. So I was all super excited. I started looking through. Legal tech doesn't even have a category in the report. So it's like, oh, this is super, super frustrating. So the legal tech market size, this is actually a project. One of the things about living in the US and spending a lot of time between the US and Canada is I can never remember if it's project or project. So this is a project that we are trying to work with Thomson Reuters and some other people to actually figure this out. This $400 billion number came from the Legal Transformational Institute, and I talked to the person who actually published originally a number of 800 billion. So if we used this number, it's still a big market. We have people who've written and said it's only 10 billion. So anyways, this is the chart on the same scale of the investment in legal tech compared to fintech. It's super, super small. And in the last 4 quarters, there's only been 17 million invested in legal tech. And I know in fintech, I mean, we have like 1.1 billion, and I know here in Canada there was the big, I think it's Shopify from Ottawa, raised 100 million. So fintech getting a lot of money, legal tech, why not so much? Part of it too is these numbers are skewed. The 731 million includes 200 million that was LegalZoom's private equity investment and 28 million for Axiom. So why is this happening? Jules is much more creative than I am, so why is this happening? You might want to take a picture of that one. So it's because lawyers hate legal tech, and although this is Jules' presentation, I can tell you that I experienced this too with Tracklight. I raised a seed round. I raised it outside. I live in Arizona and Washington State, and I raised it all in New York because it was impossible to raise money in Arizona, but that's another talk. So the panel talked a little bit about this. Lawyers are risk averse, they're skeptics. So that makes sense with clients, you like to say no. This is Jules' penguin theory, that lawyers, I've had this personally happen to me. You go in, you show the product, they think, this is amazing. Who are the other firms that are using it? No one wants to be first. They want to be fifth. They want to be sixth. So we feel like if we can get a few, and this is the whole idea of Evolve Law, if we can get people being pioneers, adopting technology, then we can get the lawyers doing the happy penguin dance. So it's more than just lawyers not investing in legal tech. We actually, this is our provocative part of it, lawyers actually tank VC deals. And they tank investments because what happens is there's always a lawyer in the room of the investors. And with what happened with Jules, which is her personal experience there, they were fundraising, and this lawyer said, we would never use this. Her company is called Hire and Esquire. It's a very clever name, and what they do is they have a legal staffing platform, so it's all automated. The lawyer that was talking against her platform in the room, his firm was actually using and is a client of Hire and Esquire. And so with my own personal experience, TrackLight, it's an automated Q&A. It dispenses zero legal advice. We've had ethical lawyers go through it like crazy. I pitched a room full of investors, and there was one lawyer there who said, this is great, this is a category killer, except she's going to get sued for the unauthorized practice of law. And so it just put this huge damper on it. I ended up raising money from the people in the room, but it took me 2.5 extra months to raise that money because I had to go address all of this. So it's like asking a taxi driver if they would use or invest in Uber. So this is problematic. So what can you do about it? So if you're a lawyer in the room, try these new legal technologies. And the most important piece of advice is if you're not that type of lawyer, fill in the blank. If you're not an immigration lawyer, then don't pass judgment on somebody's immigration act. If you're not an IP lawyer, then don't talk about why TrackLight wouldn't work for you. So this is super important. If you're an investor, please find the right lawyers to ask. I had some potential investors. They were early stage VC fund, and one of them already had an investment. He went off and he met with a big law IP partner. That's not my market. And of course the person said, I wouldn't use this. It's like, well, of course you wouldn't use it. Your clients are like huge companies. So if you're an investor, make sure you ask the companies who their users are. Oops. Sorry. So if you're an entrepreneur, be proactive, run through the walls, I like to call it professionally persistent. And so you can always come up with a new reason for engaging with people. And if you've got investors, and I'm not going to take credit for Jules' idea. She's actually done this where lawyers are like, I'm thinking of investing, but I'm really not sure about this product. So she'll go in and she'll do like a demo as if it's the demo for this firm, and she'll actually end up making an actual sale, plus she can get the investment. So you can always turn it into a little bit of a sales call. And that is the end of my Darwin talk. So I want to thank you all for coming, and there's still more food, and everyone, we hope we are invited back next month.
Thanks, Mary. And I really found all of this really educational and challenging, and being at the Legal Innovation Zone, Chris and I think about this and sit down together all the time and talk about all these different challenges, and frankly more so the opportunities. So really thanks to Peter, Shelby, Jillian, and Morgan for coming out today. We have a tiny little gift. Don't get too excited.
Thank you so much.
And we really appreciate everyone coming out. And there's lots of food in the back, and I think Yes, yeah, it's a floppy disk. It's a floppy disk.
It's beta.
And I think most of the demo companies are still here, so they'll set back up if people want to network. I think the energy was great before the panel, and I'm sure there's lots to talk about still now. So thanks a lot for coming out.
That was true of PwC, it's true of the Calgary's got this kind of flu. And once you get past the sort of
I'll send you guys like
like I said, I think you're into that.
Thanks for coming.
well, another place for pints of jazz. The place where I was raised was impossible. Yeah, but I was like, what do you need to tell? I was like, it's not like, I mean, I'm still trying, but that's
You know what, you guys are absolutely right.
it was enough time. It was like if you finish early, that's a bonus. But I mean, it wasn't like people thought it was last Friday, the statement of defense, statement of claims.
Oh, on the Thursday?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm like, I didn't think it was too easy. That was fun. Like
Two things in an entire day.
that's so yeah. And like it was those assignments were not too easy, not too difficult. I thought they were fine.
Yeah. Like a couple hours.
So that's fine. Yeah, well, I will SMS you soon.
I don't have one actually. I don't.
tables in here, and it's like a collaborative Yeah, so yeah, it's a little bit different than this. Less collaborative, more kind of from an office style, but we try to get the best we can. It's feeling up like
We've got someone for you. They may just not be a legal technologist. Thanks for coming. Oh, it's nice to come and play some tablets. We were delighted to have you. And I think I should just
oh my God. I'll follow up no one. That's exactly. That's so. Calling cars are so insensitive. So usually calling cars. I feel like the mad at the house is sure, I'd love to. Anyways, well,